How royalty dealt with disease before modern medicine throughout history. Disease has been the great equalizer, striking down peasant and prince alike. Yet for centuries, royalty believed their divine right to rule extended to protection from earthly ailments. When sickness inevitably arrived at palace gates, monarchs employed an extraordinary arsenal of remedies, rituals, and desperate measures that reveal as much about power as they do about medicine. Today, we journey through the fascinating and often shocking world of royal health practices, from medieval bloodletting to Enlightenment inoculation, discovering how the crown's fight against disease ultimately shaped modern medicine. In medieval times, royalty lived by the theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Physicians believed illness resulted from imbalance between these bodily fluids, leading to treatments that often proved more dangerous than the disease itself. When a medieval king fell ill, court physicians would immediately begin bloodletting to restore what they called humoral equilibrium. They believed royal blood ran hotter than common blood, requiring more intensive treatment. Leeches, often blessed by church officials, would be applied to draw out poisoned blood until the patient fainted. Only then would doctors consider the corrupt humors expelled. Medieval royal medicine cabinets contained exotic ingredients: crushed pearls for purification, unicorn horn powder for poison protection, and complex tonics made from rare minerals. Physicians justified these extreme treatments by claiming that divine royal nature could survive what would kill ordinary people. The irony was tragic. Many medieval monarchs died not from their original ailments, but from the treatments designed to cure them. Excessive bloodletting weakened immune systems. The Renaissance brought new medical knowledge through expanding trade routes, giving royal courts access to remedies from across the known world. Italian and French palaces became laboratories for exotic treatments, though superstition still dominated medical thinking. Bezoar stones, concretions found in Persian goat stomachs, were dissolved in wine as universal poison antidotes. These stones were so valuable that entire diplomatic missions were organized to acquire them. Courts paid fortunes for single specimens, believing they could neutralize any toxin. The most famous Renaissance remedy was theriac, known as the universal antidote. This complex mixture contained over 60 ingredients, including viper flesh, rare spices, and precious metals. Preparing theriac became a public ceremony in major cities, with royal physicians overseeing the process to ensure authenticity. Despite these elaborate precautions, Renaissance courts remained vulnerable to epidemic diseases sweeping through Europe. When plague struck, entire royal households would flee to remote castles, carrying their portable medicine chests filled with aromatic herbs and mystical remedies. Court astrologers played crucial roles in medical decisions, determining the most auspicious times for treatments based on planetary alignments. Royal physicians consulted star charts before administering medicines, believing celestial influence affected human health. The 17th century transformed royal medicine into elaborate theater, with Louis XIV of France leading this transformation. The Sun King elevated daily health routines into public spectacles, turning medical consultations into displays of royal power. Louis XIV endured over 2,000 enemas during his 72-year reign, believing purification of the royal body paralleled purification of the realm. These procedures became semi-public events, with court physicians performing before assembled nobles who treated medical treatments as entertainment. The concept of royal touch emerged during this period. Kings claimed divine power to cure scrofula, a tuberculosis-related condition, simply by laying hands on afflicted subjects. Thousands of people would travel to royal courts seeking healing through royal contact, creating massive public ceremonies. Absolutist monarchs rejected foreign medical innovations, viewing them as challenges to divine authority. When Ottoman courts began practicing inoculation against smallpox, European royalty dismissed these techniques as barbaric, preferring to rely on divine providence and noble blood's supposed natural resistance. This period saw the strangest contradiction in royal medicine. While claiming divine immunity from disease, monarchs subjected themselves to increasingly extreme treatments that often caused more suffering than the original ailments. The 18th century marked a revolutionary shift as enlightened monarchs began embracing scientific approaches to medicine. Queen Caroline of England became a pioneer by supporting variolation, the deliberate introduction of mild smallpox to prevent deadly outbreaks. This decision required tremendous courage, proposing to make royal children sick to keep them healthy challenged fundamental beliefs about divine protection. Queen Caroline insisted on testing the procedure on condemned criminals first, but when they survived, she authorized inoculation for the royal family. The Queen's support for variolation represented a crucial turning point. For the first time, royalty was leading medical progress rather than clinging to mystical beliefs about divine immunity. This royal endorsement gave credibility to scientific medicine throughout Europe. Frederick the Great of Prussia took this evolution further by establishing royal infirmaries in every province. He recognized that disease could topple dynasties more effectively than armies, making public health a matter of state security. These enlightened monarchs began submitting to the same medical protocols they imposed on their subjects, acknowledging that divine right could not shield them from natural law. This represented a fundamental shift from viewing illness as divine punishment to understanding it as a natural phenomenon requiring scientific solutions. By the late 18th century, royal courts had developed sophisticated approaches to disease management that combined scientific knowledge with diplomatic necessity. Disease diplomacy became a crucial aspect of international relations. Royal households established quarantine protocols that applied even to visiting dignitaries, recognizing that diplomatic immunity did not extend to infectious diseases. Courts developed elaborate systems for managing health during state visits, including advanced medical screenings and coordinated responses to potential outbreaks. The concept of royal medical colleges emerged during this period. Monarchs began funding institutions dedicated to advancing medical knowledge, recognizing that investment in scientific research ultimately protected both throne and realm. Royal patronage accelerated medical discoveries. Edward Jenner's smallpox vaccine succeeded partly because of royal endorsement, which gave the innovation credibility among skeptical populations. When royalty embraced new medical techniques, public acceptance typically followed. The transformation of royal medicine reveals broader changes in how societies understood disease, power, and human nature. Medieval beliefs in divine immunity gave way to Renaissance experimentation with exotic remedies, which evolved into absolutist medical theater and finally matured into Enlightenment scientific approaches. Each era's medical practices reflected its political and religious beliefs. Medieval bloodletting mirrored feudal concepts of hierarchical balance. Renaissance exotic remedies paralleled exploration and trade expansion. Absolutist medical ceremonies reflected centralized royal power. Enlightenment inoculation demonstrated scientific rationality. The most significant development was royalty's gradual acceptance of shared human vulnerability. This acknowledgement didn't weaken royal authority. It strengthened it by demonstrating wisdom and concern for subjects' welfare. Royal approaches to disease ultimately advanced medical knowledge for all humanity. While many royal remedies proved useless or harmful, royal patronage of medical research produced genuine breakthroughs that benefited entire populations. The establishment of royal medical colleges created institutions that standardized medical practice and education. Royal funding supported research that led to major discoveries in anatomy, pharmacology, and disease prevention. Most importantly, when royalty embraced new medical techniques, they provided crucial social credibility for scientific innovation. Royal endorsement helped overcome public suspicion of new treatments, accelerating the adoption of life-saving procedures. The history of royal medicine teaches us that even the most powerful people in history were ultimately subject to the same biological realities as their subjects. Disease served as a constant reminder of human mortality, regardless of wealth, power, or divine claims. The evolution from mystical beliefs to scientific approaches in royal courts paralleled broader intellectual developments in European society. As monarchs abandoned claims to divine immunity, they opened the door for more rational approaches to health and governance. Royal investment in medical advancement created institutions and knowledge systems that outlasted the monarchies themselves. Modern hospitals, medical schools, and public health systems trace their origins to royal initiatives begun centuries ago. The Crown's greatest victory over disease came not through claiming divine protection, but through acknowledging shared mortality and investing royal resources in scientific progress. Medieval kings who died from bloodletting intended to cure them taught hard lessons about the dangers of mystical thinking. Renaissance courts, fleeing plague while clutching useless talismans, demonstrated the limits of exotic remedies. Absolutist monarchs, transforming illness into political theater, showed how power could distort medical judgment. But enlightened monarchs who embraced scientific medicine and invested in public health created lasting legacies that benefited all humanity. In facing their own medical fragility, royalty discovered true strength, the power to heal not just themselves, but entire civilizations. The history of royal medicine reminds us that progress often requires abandoning comfortable myths in favor of difficult truths. The monarchs who made the greatest contributions to human health were those brave enough to admit their own vulnerability and work to protect not just themselves, but all their subjects from the universal human experience of disease. From medieval bloodletting to modern vaccination programs, the story of royal medicine is ultimately a story of human learning, sometimes through tragic error, but eventually through scientific wisdom that has saved countless lives across the centuries. Egyptian pharaohs were considered married to the goddesses of Egypt. Female pharaohs navigated this by emphasizing their roles as divine mothers and protectors of the realm. The forgotten world of Egypt's female pharaohs teaches us profound lessons about power, gender, and the deliberate construction of historical narratives. For over 3,000 years, women regularly ruled one of history's most powerful civilizations as absolute monarchs, military leaders, and living goddesses. They built monuments that still inspire awe, led armies to victory, and governed millions of subjects with divine authority. These remarkable women were systematically erased from history, not because they failed as rulers, but because they succeeded too well. Their achievements threatened male-dominated power structures that preferred to pretend women had never wielded such authority. Every time we discover another forgotten female pharaoh, we're reminded that women's exclusion from power hasn't been natural or inevitable. It's been artificial and deliberately constructed. These ancient queens prove that women have always been capable of absolute leadership. During their reigns, Egypt experienced some of its greatest periods of prosperity, artistic achievement, and territorial expansion. Their success demonstrates that diverse leadership strengthens rather than weakens civilizations. Egypt's female pharaohs didn't just rule. They ruled extraordinarily well. Their stories were hidden, but their achievements were real. These forgotten queens remind us that women have always been capable of absolute power. We just haven't always been allowed to remember them. Today, we choose to remember, honor, and learn from the remarkable women who ruled as gods in ancient Egypt.